Memento Mori, the ancient Stoic habit of thinking about death that can actually calm your anxiety. There is an ancient practice that sounds terrifying, thinking about your own death every single day, yet the people who do it often end up calmer, not more afraid. It comes from the old Stoic thinkers, and it has a name that has survived for 2,000 years, Memento Mori. On the surface, it seems like the fastest way to ruin your peace of mind. But the people who actually try it report the opposite. Less worrying, more gratitude, a strange sense of relief. And modern research is starting to hint at why it might really work. So how can thinking about the end of life actually quiet the fear inside it? Why did ancient thinkers want to remember death on purpose? The phrase Memento Mori is Latin, and it roughly means remember that you must die. To the Stoics, this was not a morbid joke. It was a tool. The Stoics were ancient philosophers who cared deeply about living a good and peaceful life. Some of the most famous, like the Emperor Marcus Aurelius and the teacher Seneca, wrote about death constantly. They were not depressed, they were practical. They believed that the surest way to waste your life was to act like it would last forever. So they trained themselves to keep death in view. Some kept reminders nearby. A simple object, a written note, a quiet daily thought. The idea was to glance at the truth, not to drown in it. By remembering that time runs out, they hoped to stop wasting it on things that did not matter. It seems backwards to our modern minds. We usually try to hide from death, push it away, and never speak of it. The Stoics did the exact opposite, and they swore it set them free. They did not fear death by ignoring it. They tamed it by looking straight at it. How does facing the end actually shrink everyday fear? Here is the part that surprises people. Once you truly accept that your time is limited, a lot of your smaller fears start to look very different. Think about what most daily anxiety is really about. Worrying what people think of you, replaying an awkward moment, stressing over a mistake at work, fearing things that might never even happen. These worries feel huge in the moment, like they take up the whole sky. Now hold them up against the simple fact that life is short and certain to end. Suddenly, that embarrassing comment from last week shrinks. The opinion of someone you barely know loses its grip. The endless what-ifs feel smaller next to the one thing that is truly guaranteed. Memento Mori works like a zoom-out button. It pulls the camera back until your giant worries look like the small specks they often are. This is the quiet magic of it. Death does not make life feel pointless. It makes the right things feel urgent and the wrong things feel tiny. The Stoics found that a person who has made peace with the end stops being pushed around by 100 little fears. When the biggest fear is faced head-on, the small ones lose almost all their power. But does modern science back any of this up? It is fair to be skeptical. This is ancient wisdom, after all. So does anything in modern research actually support the idea that thinking about death can calm us instead of crushing us? There is a real and important catch here, and it is worth understanding. Researchers have found that the way you think about death matters enormously. When death is shoved at someone suddenly, as a scary threat they cannot control, it tends to spike fear and defensiveness. That is the reaction most of us expect. But something different seems to happen with calm, chosen reflection. When people gently and thoughtfully consider their own death on their own terms, studies have pointed to surprising results. People often report feeling more grateful, kinder to others, and clearer about what they truly value. Instead of panic, the quiet version tends to produce perspective. That distinction is the whole game. The Stoics were not doing the scary, sudden kind. They were doing the slow, deliberate, gentle kind. The daily glance rather than the shock. And that gentle, repeated practice is exactly the version that seems to soothe rather than scare. In other words, the ancient method and the modern findings may be pointing at the same door. The fear is not in the thought of death itself. It is in being ambushed by it instead of calmly turning to face it. So how can a person actually practice this without spiraling? This is the practical question, because there is clearly a wrong way to do this. Sitting alone in the dark obsessing over dying is not the goal, and could easily make things worse. So what does the healthy version look like? The key is to keep it light, brief, and grounding. The Stoics did not stew in fear for hours. They used quick, gentle reminders. A simple morning thought that today is a gift and not a guarantee. A short pause to notice that the people and moments around you will not last forever, so they are worth your full attention now. The aim is always to point the thought back toward life. Remembering that time is short is only useful if it makes you call the person you love, finish the work that matters, and let go of the grudge that is poisoning your week. If the thought ever drags you down into dread instead of lifting you toward action, that is the signal to step back, breathe, and return to the present moment. Done right, it becomes less of a heavy meditation and more of a quiet, steadying habit. A small daily reset that keeps your priorities straight and your worries in their proper size. And if these thoughts ever feel too heavy to handle alone, that is a completely human thing, and reaching out to someone you trust is always the wise move. The practice is not about dwelling on the end. It is about using the end to wake up to the now. There is also a reason this practice feels lighter the more it is repeated. The first time a person truly faces the thought, it can sting. But like anything looked at honestly and often, the sting begins to fade and a strange calm takes its place. What once felt like a scary edge becomes a quiet teacher, gently pointing back toward what matters most on any given day. The fear shrinks not because the truth changes, but because a person stops running from it. So here is the truth that the Stoics understood long before any modern study. The fear of death is not really cured by hiding from it. Hiding only lets it grow in the dark, leaking out as 1,000 smaller anxieties that haunt our ordinary days. The Stoics found a stranger and braver path. They turned and looked at the very thing everyone runs from, and in doing so, they took away its power to control them. Memento Mori is not a reminder that life is short and sad. It is a reminder that life is short and precious, and that this single fact can burn away almost everything not worth worrying about. The person who truly accepts the end is the one most free to enjoy the middle. Remembering that you will die is not the thing that steals your peace. It might just be the thing that finally gives it back. This video touches on a sensitive subject. If thoughts about death ever feel heavy or overwhelming for you personally, please reach out to someone you trust or a mental health professional, because support is always worth seeking. If this gave you a new way to see your own worries, subscribe so you catch the next idea that can shift your mindset for good. Give it a like to share a little calm with someone who needs it, and tell everyone in the comments what one thing you would stop worrying about if you really took this to heart. See you in the next one.